Um, so we have about 30 minutes to do just chatting, and then we've got 15 minutes of Q&A. I bargained myself 45 minutes. That was the deal, so I'm glad we've got there. I'm in my Melbourne attire. Been told that everyone in Melbourne wears all black, so here I am. So yesterday, I got here in the morning, and then at about 5 p.m. because obviously we're on tour, right? This is work for us, so we're spending the week doing things, going bowling, lawn bowls this afternoon. So it was at 5 p.m. We went to Curious Bar. Has anyone been there? Anyone been there to the W Curious Bar? Anyway, so it's quite dark, right? So we walk in. Anyone who knows me knows that I only drink gin tonics exclusively. So we went in, we had about 3-4 gin tonics, and then eventually we came out. It was like 7:30 p.m. Walked outside, and it was completely light outside. It made me feel terrible, to be perfectly honest, incredibly hungover. And your question probably is, what does this have to do with NFTs? Well, nothing, it doesn't. Not at all. So today we're going to talk about 3 things. First thing is hype. Second thing is trading, and third thing is the future. My job here today is not to tell you to buy anything. It's not to tell you to sell anything either. I don't specifically want to talk all about PA either, because I think that's not a fantastic use of everyone's time. If you want to research a project, you can do it yourself. What I hope to achieve today is for everyone to walk away and feel like they've learned something. So with that being said, quick show of hands. So who has purchased an NFT in the last 12 months? Great. Who also is down bad on NFTs in the last 12 months? Yeah, me too. Who trades NFTs for profit? Put your hand up if you trade NFTs for profit. Well, I know we're all down bad, but like, what was the intention? Was it profit? Yes or no? Put your hand up if it was an intention for profit. Okay, I did. Who here trades for the pure intention of purchasing artwork and supporting artists? Okay. And who here trades specifically for the utility that NFTs provide? Okay, so it's mixed. The one thing that I want to chat about today is hype, right? When it comes to NFT projects, hype is basically the most important thing out of everything. If there's no hype, then realistically there's no real success in the industry that we're currently sitting in. And that's just the sad reality of it. You can make the best product, the best artwork, and you can push that narrative. However, if you don't have hype or marketing, it just doesn't go anywhere. And that is one of the hardest parts about NFTs and launching NFT projects. For anyone who is looking to launch an NFT project, your marketing is basically the most important part of your project to date, which is what we really focused on when we launched PA. Now, to give some background, who here knows who I am? Put your hand up. Okay, who here has absolutely no idea? Okay, cool. So, quick intro. My name's Lewis, otherwise known as Voltura. I founded Psychedelics Anonymous. We are the largest NFT project in Australia, based on the amount of volume and also the amount of number of NFTs. We've been around since December. The project started really working on in about August, and obviously we've been here to date. Similar to Kevin Rose, we've been through all the ups and all the downs of the market, and we get affected by that like everyone else. But the most important part of that is the amount of learning that we actually get as founders. And for us as a founder, we understand a lot of the parts of NFTs which normal traders or collectors just don't. And those things are insights that I believe we should share with you guys so that you know later on when you try and launch a project or you try and trade an NFT, you have a deeper understanding from our perspective. One thing that Kevin mentioned was short-term headlines. NFT projects, as I said, are derived really from hype, is that essentially their success metric, which means that there's incredible amount of pressure on founders to push through short-term headlines. You'll be surprised the amount of DMs I get on a daily basis from people going, when's the next headline? When's the next thing? When's the next feature? When is it going? Like, that is a constant narrative for us. that puts founders in a really precarious position because they have a choice to make. Do we push a short-term narrative and make something seem really important when generally it's not? Or do we work on something from a long-term perspective and sort of cop the backlash that comes with not releasing something every week? That is a position that we get put in. And these insights are things that I know a lot of you probably think about or have knowledge of, but it's something you've really got to understand. When you put yourself in an NFT collector position, of which I have been in, obviously, we need to know when something is going to happen from a collection perspective and how that's going to impact the collection and community as a whole. For us, we have pushed out products, we have provided mental health therapy to over 2,000 people and 2,000 individual sessions for free now. These are utilitarian things that we push for from a Psychedelics Anonymous perspective. We've donated over $250,000 to charity. However, that doesn't directly impact our quantitative metrics of success, which determines really floor price. And that's what a lot of people care about. What's the floor price? Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it going sideways? Is there volume? Is there not? These are things that we as traders and collectors always look at. And again, it's always based around hype. So that is a fundamental problem for NFT projects as a whole, because we get put in that position where we don't know whether we should do short-term headlines or work on long-term product. Who here knows a collection that has put out a product, a piece of utility, and the floor price has gone up afterwards? Shout something out. Does anyone know? Give me an example. Yeah, in what way?
In real life toys.
Okay. Anything else? In what way?
The ticket went up after the event was already done.
Okay. There's not a lot of examples of that, frankly. You look at a lot of collections that we've looked over the last 12 months, and basically every single time they put out something that's utilitarian-based, the price goes down. On the way up, when it's coming, this thing's coming, it's going to be launched, that's when people normally buy. And then as soon as it comes out, it sells, and it goes down. That is a genuine issue, and that's because it's based around people wanting profit over actual utility and support. And that's something that we have to deal with as founders, right? We work so hard for something. We work so hard on season 1 or season 2 of game theory as an example for us, or giving therapy out as an example. And when we put it out, the price action then declines. It's really interesting to see. And a lot of it is based around market psychology and hype. So then, again, we get put in a position where do we push this narrative really, really hard to try and drive that hype and then drive that floor price for those people that are wanting to make money? Or do we focus on building meaningful products? For me, my personal experience, we spent probably 6 months really trying hard to balance. We did a lot of short-term stuff. We spoke so often at length. I was on spaces all the time. We were doing that constantly. But the problem with that is I then wasn't spending enough time really working. You know, I wasn't running our team as effectively as I could. I was spending 12 hours a day on Twitter. That doesn't equate to products being built. It just doesn't. So then when I see a post on Twitter this morning and it was essentially saying, if your founder isn't on Twitter posting all the time and doing all this, then that's a red flag. But for me, from a founder's perspective, you know, if they're on Twitter all the time, what are they doing? What are they building? And then it comes down to, do we want meaningful products or do we want culture and meme culture and community values? And that's what a NFT collection brings us. And that's a really hard distinction. So for anyone who's looking to build or launch a project, you have to really think about, what are my long-term goals, but what are my short-term wins that are going to get me and the community in a position which we are happy? And that's something that we struggle with. It's something that Moonbirds struggle with. It's something that everyone struggles with. And if you're into a collection, or if you're looking towards making a collection, it's something you should really think about. The second thing I want to talk about is trading. Now, if you're here to trade NFTs for profit, which generally speaking most people are, That's just the position which we're in. A lot of people want profit. Who saw Valhalla mint today? Yep, we all saw Valhalla mint. Cool, great. Sold out pretty quickly, went to 2 ETH, and now it's at 0.7. These things are a representation of people wanting to make money. That process of trying to get that whitelist, allow list application is realistically a meme. You know, it's a form of marketing. I saw someone tweet today that they put in their application to Valhalla that they'll hodl till Valhalla. But Valhalla for them was 1.5 ETH, so they sold. Right? Like, the application process as a whole is broken. It's great marketing. And that's why we did it in December. We were one of the first collections to do a whole whitelist campaign. Anyone who was around them will know that pretty fondly. There was fun times before things got more difficult. So that trading aspect boils down to patterns. In NFT world, based around what we just spoke about, which was hype, okay, and hype derives value, especially quantitative success. That benefits everyone here from a profit standpoint if you can understand what cycles we're in. So let's look at trading as an example. Who minted the other side? Put your hand up. I know we don't want to because you're probably down bad, but like, you know, respectfully. That whole hype scenario for the other side was something that was completely predictable if you've seen it before. You know, having someone or being someone that's seen this space evolve over time, it was very obvious that Bored Ape Yacht Club prices were going to rocket, Mutant prices were going to rocket, ApeCoin was going to rocket, all because this thing was coming. And there was so much hype surrounding this item, this thing, which we had no idea about. All we knew was plots for sale. We knew it's for some game. We have no idea when the game's coming out. We don't know timelines. We don't know anything. But the hype surrounding it dictated price action. Anyone who was fortunate enough to sell in those phases obviously would have had a great time. And personally, I stopped trading NFTs since December because I really wanted to focus on the project. But all the group chats I was in, all of them, every single one, I said, I would sell a Bored Ape here, I would sell a Mutant here, I'd sell all my ApeCoin here. All right, this isn't going to lead to expectations which everyone thinks. You know, $500,000 for a Bored Ape is a joke, to be perfectly honest. That's frothy. So I said that, and then everyone counter-argued me. Every single person counter-argued me. No, it's going to be great. The marketplace is going to be priced in Ape. No, the other side's going to be out in 3 months. It's going to be awesome. No, we've got way more room to grow. Everyone said that to me. And that's fine. No problem. That all ended out to be not true. Obviously, with a sort of a realistic perspective that the market went a different way, but that was always going to happen. And then let's talk about DGODs. Did anyone mint Utes? Yeah, a few people? Okay. So why didn't the market predict exactly what was going to happen there for DGODs? It was the exact same thing over and over again. It was the other side V2 on a Solana. Okay, DGODs went to $6.50. That's ridiculous. Dust went to $3. Again, that's ridiculous. And then everyone, a lot of people were buying and holding at those prices. As soon as it happened, as soon as it was over, it got cut in half. And then it got cut again. These are patterns. Okay, it's the same with a Bitcoin cycle, an Ethereum cycle, the whole market as a whole. These are patterns. Okay, they don't always replicate, but they rhyme. They do. So with NFT drops, with airdrops, and as Kevin was talking about, the when airdrop, all these cycles, they have a predictable outcome. When we were doing things for our game theory, we had a few of our items in our ecosystem that had a cumulative value of, 3, 4, 5 ETH. As soon as the snapshot happened, everything dropped by half, if not more. Because there are patterns here. Now, if you get pulled into one of those patterns and you get wrecked, it's on you. It's totally on you. Because these are things are predictable. All you have to do is recognize them. And it's similar with trading anything. The most important part of trading is figuring out, are you doing it for profit or utility? If you don't have an understanding of which direction you want to head, then you will never achieve the outcome because you're split. So figure out if you are buying something because you want to buy it for profit, or you're buying something because you want to reap the rewards of which that thing is benefiting you. So that is the trading aspect. The last aspect, realistically, is the future. And a lot of people have different takes as to how the future of NFTs will roll around. And I spoke about this on a podcast this morning. Whenever we use technologies today, whenever my granddad, as an example, goes and uses Apple Pay at a cafe and uses the phone and pays for the coffee, he doesn't understand what's happening. Hell, even if I don't really understand what's happening. I know there's an NFC chip in there, but I don't understand the process. Same when we transfer money or use the Swift banking network. We don't get it, right? We don't fully understand what is happening. That will be the same for NFTs. We will interact with NFTs in the next couple of years, and it will be mass adopted, but they just don't know what they're using. They will have no idea. And when you say to them, oh, it's a non-fungible token, they'll go, what's that? That is how NFTs will evolve, for sure. But for the moment, we are stuck in a bit of an echo chamber of power users, right? We all want profile photos, we want utility, we want airdrops, and that's something that will drive the space probably backwards before it does forwards. Now, digital identity is something that I truly believe will be the future of Web3 in some way, shape, or form. And that, for me, is clearly demonstrated by esports. How often do you get outside and go to a basketball field, go to a pitch, go actually play real sport, right? And when I say real sport, I'm doing that in inverted commas. Not a lot of people go out and actually go play basketball with their friends at a court. Doesn't happen. How easy is it to play an online game? Super easy. All you need is, 2 eyes, 2 hands. Go on, you play. And the same logic applies for digital identity. It is way easier to use a profile photo of a PA Genesis or an Azuki or a Bored Ape Yacht Club. It's way easier. And it also represents something more than just an image. It's a community-based thing. It's also a status thing. You may go buy a really fast, expensive car and drive it around Melbourne CBD. A few thousand people will see it, right? But if you have a Bored Ape Yacht Club or an Azuki or a PA and you represent something through that identity, which also represents status at a much larger level, so many people can see that. Over the last year, my Twitter account has had over 300 million impressions, I think. And all of those impressions see me with an ape, which is a status thing, generally speaking. Even though I bought mine for not much money, right? It doesn't mean as much to me. But it's still a status thing. Which is why, since June, we've been developing something very similar to Kevin Rose. Like, we have been working on a trait marketplace because I believe customization is something we'll all naturally want to compete in. We all get up in the morning, everyone here got up in the morning and chose what to wear. I chose black because we're in Melbourne, right? It's different. So when customization comes available, that'll be something for people to play with. I identify as this week. There's a Christie's auction for the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is why everyone dressed up in suits. My ape has a suit on it right now. That's because I dressed it up in a suit once before and I liked it. So that rarity disparagement and that game of playing rarity with NFTs is something that I truly believe will happen, and at a big scale. And we're building something to make sure that that is accessible for all NFT collections. Now, I do slightly disagree with Miss Rose and Moonbird surrounding the rarity aspect. I understand that messing with rarity is a thing that our power-using echo chamber will probably have an issue with. But for everyone else who comes on board, I don't think they're going to care. If it's a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 asset that's based around scarcity, then probably, they'll probably care. But if it's a $200 NFT, a $300, $400, $500 NFT, probably not. Probably want to make it their own. And that's something that we want to enable. The last point, realistically, that I want to chat through is the metaverse. I said in December, I was like, Sandbox and Decentraland isn't going to be it. I personally don't believe that. I think we're years away from a metaverse where we all interact with each other. Because human interaction is something we obviously need, right? But the other issue is purely infrastructure-based. How do we present an experience that allows people to interact at scale in a high-quality environment? And then, obviously, accessibility. If I'm using Decentraland and Sandbox, which by no means they're good products, but the problem is that my friends, my family that aren't Web3, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to set up a wallet. It doesn't make sense to them, okay? But as soon as Apple, Google, Facebook, one of them create an accessible metaverse, which we can all jump into really quickly. If you have any Apple products and you've got an iPhone and a Mac, they're so easily integrated, right? It's really easy and accessible, which means that whoever comes up with that metaverse solution first is the one that we'll all flock to. Why? Because we want to go where our friends are. You know, why would we want to go to a metaverse simply because it's decentralized when none of our friends hang out? It doesn't make sense. So from a metaverse perspective, I'm going to wait till one of those big platforms play ball, and then I think we'll jump on it. But we're a couple of years out for sure. For NFTs, what is going to happen? We're in a bear market, obviously. There's a lot of systemic risk. You know, we've watched D-Gods have a really awful time with Solana based around FTX. That isn't something they could control. It just happened. Which also spins up a narrative now that, you know, when you are purchasing an NFT, do you really think about what chain it's on? What's the risk of the chain? You know, is Solana going to go to zero? Is it going to have a real issue? Is it going to pause? Is something going to happen there? And that's why, personally, we've always been Ethereum-based, right? It's, in my opinion, the most superior blockchain when it comes to NFTs, and I think it'll stay that way for a while. But there are shifts that we have to make as an ecosystem to understand what the best answer or what the best protocol may be for the solution that we are trying to build. For Australia, it's a very interesting position that we're in, actually, because we obviously are a much smaller tech hub. You know, it's fantastic to see the amount of people here today hanging out, especially in a weekday, middle of the day. People either are taking time off work, or their corporates have got them here, or you're all entrepreneurs that have the time to take out of your day to try and learn something and network. And all of that's really awesome to see. But we are in a different position and a different level to the Kevin Roses of the world. We don't have that level of access. You know, when we started PA, we had a fantastic go at it. We did a couple thousand ETH traded in an hour. You know, we minted out 38,380 NFTs in a pretty short period of time. And yes, the market was completely different, but we made that mark. And for me and for us, it opened up networks we would never have access to before. And that's only because we achieved something. So how does everyone in this room make a real difference in this space is by genuinely working together. You know, I think from NFTs specifically, there will be some collections that here today might be represented that decide to go to other places or other parts of the world. You know, we know Betty. Betty's a fantastic icon in the space. She's lovely. DevFellows is an amazing project. But it's clear that them going to America is for reasons obviously personally and professionally. There's more opportunities there for NFT world, for Web3 world. Personally, I'm not going anywhere. I think we need to work together here to make an actual difference and put ourselves on the mark, on the landmark, realistically, and make a difference. And we can. It'll just take some time. So which is why events today that Greg's put on in the team is really, really good to see. And it's something that we need to do together and stick together. So, having said that, please make the use of this experience and this time to genuinely talk to other people and figure out how we can work together. Because if Australia is going to be somewhere where we can actually make a dent in this space, then we're going to have to do it collectively. Which means that we'll be staying here, obviously, and we'll be pushing ourselves forward in every way that we can. And the future of NFTs for Australia really relies on us, right? And all of us here today. So for that, I want to say thank you. And also for any PA holders that are here, I also want to say thank you for your support. It's obviously a journey of ups and downs that we're all learning on together. So without that being said, let's hit into some Q&A, because that's always a good way to get some value. If anyone has any questions whatsoever, it could be about anything crypto related, anything NFT related that I can help give some insight for, the microphone is right there. Put your hand up and we'll get started.
Yep, got one at the back. Where was it? It's in my here. Yeah. There you go.
It's Ash from Lazy Lions. Mate,
mate.
that was incredible. I think a lot of value for everyone here. There's so many points that I think are great discussion points, and I think everyone here should take a lot of value from and really think about. One that you brought up, which is really interesting, is the idea of utility versus speculation versus investing, right? Which are each like separate buckets. And like, of course, you know, it's a bit off-putting from our positions as like, you know, leaders of these two projects. Done, I think, 30,000 ETH each, right? And that a lot of that was based on, you know, speculation as well, right? Sure, there's a ton of utility in both projects, and that's what we focus on. So, you know, for founders out here who are listening in, I guess the question that I would like to ask and just get your thoughts on and maybe open that discussion is, you know, how would you recommend founders try and find the right community members for what project they're trying to build?
So I think that's based around realistically your objective, right? There's two objectives that could be clear. The first one is we want to maximize our business growth. We want to make as much money as we can and build as much profit products that we can to make a difference, right? And the second one is to be more niche and have like a more collective, smaller group of individuals. There was an event last night, I'm not sure how many people went, which was at Oshi's Gallery. There was a music DAO that was talking about the way that they're pushing their platform forward and collating a way that music can be owned and stored digitally as NFTs, right? That is a very small term, hand-to-hand combat strategy to get an audience together. Now, their objective would be to make a difference in the form of their tech and probably grow quite slowly, right? Compared to, do we want to make a 10,000 collection go as hard as we possibly can, get 400,000 followers on Twitter and make a massive dent in this space? So I think that's the first thing you'd have to outline based on what you want to achieve. For people who want to build a smaller community, then build it around a specific niche. You know, find people that are interested in specific types of music, as an example, and bring them into the scene. Okay, I wouldn't search within Web3 to build a little community like that. I would search outside and onboard them through and make them understand why these things have, you know, advantages which they can benefit from. From the other perspective, if you're trying to build a big community, you're trying to take a real hit at something in this space, then realistically you need to put yourself in a subset which exists already in Web3 and Web3 Twitter. So as an example, for us, psychedelics is a big thing. Okay, I've personally, been through a multitude of bouts of depression, anxiety, and things like that. A lot of our team members have as well, and some have experimented with other treatment options in the psychedelic realm. So we're passionate about that. Okay, so when we pushed our brand forward, we realistically didn't have a fantastic understanding of how many people would be interested in that, but we knew we were. So we were just going to push it forward anyway and hope for the best. And that hoping for the best led us to other people with like minds, because sometimes all you need is someone to make the first move for then other people to flock to it. So I think if you're trying to build a community, try and start out niche if that's what you want to achieve. If you want to achieve something in a big sphere, in a big realm, then push really hard to try and get that outside. And that's realistically, it's just a marketing job, right? But trying to make your brand specific about something so people can resonate with it is important. I've had hundreds of messages, probably thousands, from people that go, I'm really happy that you're pushing the psychedelic messaging forward. You know, we have heaps of doctors, heaps of conferences, heaps of courses that we push forward, and people care about it. There's a passionate community there. Having said that, that community isn't the entire Psychedelics Anonymous community, right? It's probably a small subset. So again, it depends on the scale. But if I was trying to build something smaller and meaningful, I'd look outside of Web3 first.
For everyone listening in, great advice for everyone listening in. Another thing as well to add on that would be, just sharing the values of the project, what it means to be a community member, and make sure everyone can hear that. I think we're still getting audio troubles, but mate, great stuff.
Appreciate it. All right, has anyone got any other questions?
Yeah, I can see 3 actually. I'm going to go here, then here, and then here.
Cool, perfect.
Whoever's asking a question, would they please stand up?
Sure.
Hey, thanks for that, Lewis.
No worries, mate.
You spoke about no hype, no, you don't have anything. Can you sort of talk about hype versus the brand? You know that PA probably went, got the hype, built sort of somewhat of a brand, and you got other companies who are brands, and I guess the hype comes with that brand. Are you saying that you should build the brand first, like a personal brand or whatever brand, and then come into the space and sort of try to build that hype to do what you want to do?
Great question. So I would say that hype and brand really come in hand, right? So if you have something meaningful from a brand perspective, you can build hype surrounding it if it's exciting and new and something innovative. For us, obviously, we started with nothing, right? Like I had 4,000 followers on Twitter. I had 0 public presence surrounding that. We built a brand first, which people could flock to, and we used hype to get awareness surrounding that. So that was the process, right? There's no point generating hype if you've got nothing for them to do or nothing for them to resonate around. That's useless, right? You've captured people and they've gone. It's marketing 101. So I think the process for that is always build something meaningful first from a brand perspective, then drive hype, which is just a marketing activity, and depending on your strategy, you'll be successful or unsuccessful. And then that hype then leads to your brand building its actual IP and awareness. That's the strategy I would take.
All right, thanks, Lewis.
No problem.
I'll come in. Where was the person here? Yep.
Loving that Moonbirds hoodie, mate.
Hey, Lewis, it's Nudes here.
Hey,
I'm
Nudes.
actually one of the moderators for Psychedelics Anonymous, so we know each other a little bit. Mate, I wanted to ask you a question about tokenomics. Obviously, you got the Psy token coming up, potentially being launched at some stage. What are the biggest challenges around that? Like, is it regulations? Is it actually having a use case to make sure that the token holds some kind of value? Just the challenges you're finding around that, because obviously a lot of projects have got tokens and some of them are just worth nothing, and interested to see what you're going to do to make yours hopefully hold some kind of value, or at least have a use case.
Sure. So my perspective on tokens is there's a couple elements for that. The first is a lack of regulatory certainty. That's the biggest issue, right? If we want to develop a token which we can use in an ecosystem where there's use cases for it, then that's great. That's fine, right? We have pure intentions there, okay? And we have to work with third parties for that token to exist, because we recognize that that is not something that we can do ourselves. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing is, for us to push a token forward, we need to have use cases for it, right? We need to have reasons to use a token. Let's look at a few tokens that are out there at the moment. ApeCoin, no use case, just purely speculative, right? It peaked when there was a use case for it, which was obviously the other side drop. And then you look at DGODs as an example as well. There was a reason for it to exist around Utes, and they obviously picked that because they want a reason for that to exist. However, the problem with that is it's short term. So price spikes, price goes down. There's two problems with that. One, people get wrecked at the end of the day, and that's not good for anyone. Second issue is that you don't have sustained drive for said tokens, so it can prove some people a little bit annoying. The regulatory issues is generally around uncertainty. We don't know what playing field we can really play on. I've had countless meetings. I've spent hours on the phone with multitude of tax lawyers, securities lawyers, whether it be in Australia, overseas. No one knows what the goalposts are. We don't know, okay? It's interesting, two things that are interesting. One, the library ruling for that coin, LBRY, you look it up on Twitter, they got essentially deemed a security by the SEC. That's not that great for the industry as a whole. They completely lost. XRP is obviously going through a huge rigmarole. I'm not really up to speed on that, but that's not looking good either. The third is the ApeCoin probe by the SEC. Now, again, that's a real troubling sort of issue. We just don't know what rules are right and what is wrong. We don't know what we can do. We don't know what we can't do. It's easier for regulatory bodies to put in rules that protect themselves the most and make their lives easier. We have been coordinating with a few regulatory bodies about other items, which I can't really talk about, but we have to go through a learning experience together. And that's us with the regulatory body. And we have to explain things, which we understand to be so basic, but they just don't get it. So it's very hard to bend those rules, especially in organizations like that, where they are pretty rigid. And that is the biggest challenge. If there was no regulatory concern and there was a clear roadmap of, if you want to launch a token to have some utility value, right? It's not proposed for purely just earning money, making money, speculative security. There's no dividend payments. There's no royalty share, revenue share, or anything like that. Then you follow this process. Then everyone could do it, right? But we don't know that. And personally, we don't want to put ourselves in jeopardy or the project. That's not good for anyone. We also don't want to put anyone else in jeopardy. So that is a very hard balance. In terms of tokenomics, the reason why most tokens are basically zero is because there's no use case. There's genuinely no use case. With Ethereum as an example, you can do so much stuff with it. So many dApps you can use and interact with, NFTs, heaps of stuff. That makes sense. But for a token put out by an NFT project that says, in a year's time, you might see a game which we've developed that also might be shit, because we're not game developers, you can then use your token. It just doesn't make any sense. So we decided internally, we don't want to engage with any token infrastructure. We don't want to engage with anyone or anything or any foundation or any group until we have a use case for it. That's the first number one benchmark. The second is we want to look to be as regulatorily secure as humanly possible. However, from my perspective, my personal perspective, the advancements of that ruling as well as the ApeCoin probe is something that's incredibly worrying. So I think for a lot of people, the opinion surrounding that is just wait and see. You don't want to be that one where they pick you out and make an example of you. No one wants to be that one. It's for most NFT projects, it's instant death, right? They've got no money to back up that fight. So tokenomics is really difficult, but so are NFTs. NFTs are still being defined. Why are NFTs taxed the way they are when they can't be used as collateral for a margin loan, as an example? They're taxed as assets, but you can't use them as assets like you would shares. These are all questions we all have together. So regulatory-wise, we're trying to work as best we can. And I've got a number of meetings with other people that want to try and help. And so we'll push as fast as we can, but we also don't want to make any missteps. So it's a balance. It's a very delicate balance.
I think there we go. The mic's back on. We'll go one or two more questions and we'll wrap up for lunch to just here.
Thanks for that. So PA holder here. My brother is a PA holder as well. He actually has a couple of sets, maybe more.
Awesome, thank you.
So we wanted to just ask if there's any potential of a collab with, say, Adidas or Nike for EZO, and what are the sort of future plans in terms of collaboration?
Totally. So We have a few things that we've been working on, specifically with one brand that's pretty well known, and that'll eventuate when it eventuates, right? Like, this comes back to the start of the discussion of what's timeline-wise, what's hype-wise, what's headline-wise. And for the moment, as soon as we have stuff that we want to push forward, we'll push forward. There is, with Psychedelics Anonymous, we have tried to be as picky as possible, but we've also got to understand that the Adidas's and Nikes of the world, like, first of all, Nike's got Artifact. So most of the time, they're going to go with Artifact-based brands instead of any other collaborations. For Adidas, they're a little bit more spread, but you've also got to think towards the deal. The deal that we try and string up with brands is a very interesting and delicate journey based on what they get and what we get. And it's who's got the position of power in that setting. So for the deal that we have strung up at the moment, it's more of a balanced opinion, right? Like, it's a brand that wants to come into Web3 and make a little bit more of a difference and wants to do it with some authority figures or some trusted figures in the space. And then as a result, we get exposure on both ends. So I think we'll start to see more collaborations come about. But at the moment, macro-wise, NFTs and crypto is pretty bad. You know, like the FTX issues, the 3 Arrows Capital issues, I know that is crypto native, but it reflects on the industry as a whole. So that sort of scared metric of how these brands want to collaborate with us does show through. You know, we had a lot more conversations with Web2 companies in multiple aspects, and some of them been really spooked by some of the activities that have been happening over the last couple of weeks. And to be honest, I don't blame them, because I understand it. I understand why those things happen. You know, we are all in the trenches, we get it. However, they don't. They just see the bad outcome, and I don't blame them. So I think we'll see from our perspective, as well as all of NFT world, will probably have more exposure and more partnerships moving forward. But we've also want to be selective and balance that short-term hype cycle, right? Because we get asked for collabs all the time. But we will do one when we see it has value for us. But obviously, for anyone who knows us well, you know, the trait marketplace is probably the place where we'll start doing more collabs, because it's easy to. It's easy to do it. There's a better activation. It's also low touch. A lot of collections or brands want to launch collections. That is a risky move, right? You launch a collection, either sinks or it swims. If they want to launch a branded trait in the marketplace, doesn't go well, that's okay. It's okay. So we'll see more as time moves forward.
And last question, just over here.
Firstly, well-being check. How you doing with that hangover?
Mate, you know, like we're getting there. We got to bed relatively early because it was very daylight. So I think Thursday night's the big night, right? Yes. Yeah,
Cool.
cool.
Well-being. Now you've just called it. There you go. There's some alpha. My name's Benny G, just a supporter in this space, not a project owner or founder or anything like that. I like ginger beards, coffee, and riding my bike. So you talked about brands, so you got to tell people that. Shout out to Lazy Lions too. I can't wait to get into your project. Killer Bears have been pushing hard, so I've got to come talk to you, Ash, and probably just drop you my wallet or something. To go on with, you've got some PA people in here as well. Just thought we'd finish with a high note, really. How do you seek to mobilise the army you've created? I think from my personal perspective, I'm one of the army. And we're out there desperate to do things for projects they're involved in. So I'd love to hear your wonderings about how to best mobilise the army you've created and what you can do with that.
So I think it's an interesting, it's an interesting experience coming from someone who realistically hasn't had much social presence, you know, social media. Like, I've never liked social media, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's coming from zero to that to, you know, a quote-unquote army as a result is sort of a learning curve, I think, for anyone who gets in that position. To mobilize them is for them to have a good time. You know, like, as long as they're having a good time, as long as we can go to bed knowing, okay, they have got things to do, they've got things to look forward to, they've got value that they can derive from the project. You know, that, as long as we can do that for them, I'm happy. In terms of mobilizing them, you know, you have to make things enjoyable. And that's one thing that people struggle with. And it's the easy things, it's the small things that are enjoyable. Like at the moment, we've had, for 72 hours, we've had hundreds, I think we had 3,000 people on our webpage trying to solve one of our puzzles for The Forest, our Season 2 game theory stuff. Like, they're all having fun. Like, our Discord is packed at the moment, when most Discords are completely empty. So mobilizing an army can benefit, you know, the project in a lot of different ways, but you have to give them a reason to actually want to be involved in the first place. And that's something that we have to work on most notably. And things like over the last couple of days, how everyone's been happy working on those puzzles, that is mobilizing an army. That is them getting value out of the project. The big question is, you know, where does it stop, or how can we continue that indefinitely? And realistically, most Web3 projects, as we've changed into a different market, need revenue sources to continue. You know, a lot of NFT projects right now are absolutely dead in the water, you just don't know it. Because running an NFT project is actually really expensive. You know, we have a really big team because we have to work on these short-term things as well as our long-term stuff, you know? So the army as a whole, you know, showing up day in, day out helps us tremendously. But we have to give them a reason to show up. As long as we do that, they're happy, we're happy, and we're all moving forward. But naturally, in a space that is this volatile and this risky, you know, and as Kevin said, you know, you don't want to over-index yourself into NFTs. That's how you have a bad time. You know, there will be naturally people that will leave. And that is something that every project has to deal with. We have to deal with it. Everyone has to. So message is keep them happy with things to do. And those things aren't necessarily more money, more airdrops. It can be fun, genuine fun, community fun. And that's what we're trying to focus on at the moment.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Voltura. That was a really, really informative session. And we now go to give it a round of applause.
Thanks, guys.